So I'm going to show you how to use some blending modes to make images blend together with their pixels from layer to layer. So I'm going to do File Open, and I'm going to open my files. And I have these three photos of a child, some jewelry because she likes to play with jewelry and sparkly things. And I also have a photo of some crayons because she likes to do arts and crafts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of decide which picture to blend with, which pictures to blend with one another so I can tell a story about this person. So I'm going to take this jewelry one and I'm going to just pull, notice how they all open in their own tab. I'm just going to pull this tab down so that I can see both of my files. If I ever want to put it back up, I just slide it up to the bar and put it back up there. But I'm going to first start by dragging two files together. And you can do this by actually taking your move tool and dragging it over. Or you could also do it by making a completely new file. Oops, not open. File new. And make the file the size that you want it. So over here I would do inches. And I would select 300 resolution, 300 pixels per inch, make the size, the custom size that I maybe want it to be, and then from there I could drag all of my photos that I want to use into that single document versus dragging the photos on top of one another. When I'm done with a photo, I would just want to close it so I don't clutter my windows. Now I have this photo. And notice it's much smaller than the other image. And I want it to be a closer up of her. So what I'm going to do is, you could crop it before you bring it in, or we could just transform it. So File, Transform, or Edit, Transform, Scale, or the shortcut is Command T. Command T. And notice I get a bounding box around the image, and I can just hold the shift key and I can scale it up, making sure that it doesn't distort. So using that shift key. And I hit OK. So now I have this photo and I have to decide where I want to put it. So we might try putting it in one spot and realizing that compositionally they can't really fit together. I'm over here, I've got my layers palette. I'm going to bring it up here so we can see it. And I have those two, you can see I have my two layers. I'm going to unlock this bottom layer so that I can freely move them around. So right now the portrait is behind the other layer. Okay, so I've got two layers there. I'm going to try some blending modes. So in the layers palette there's this drop down and there's a variety of different blending modes, and you can just kind of go through them and decide which one you like best. You might also find that, so maybe I do soft overlay, okay? I can also go in and adjust the contrast. So I can go in and maybe I want to boost up the contrast of that because it's maybe not standing out as much as I want. I could play around with some of those settings after I apply an effect. I might also find that this behind here is these jewels that are kind of in her face, and I don't like how that is. So I might move her over here to a spot where you can see her a little better. I didn't want that to interfere with her face. Okay. I might also go back to normal, and I might try the opposite. So I might take this one and try different blending modes and find that the soft light doesn't work the same way. So hard light maybe works better, or vivid light, or finding one that you like. Okay, so the order of the layers has everything to do with the way they blend together, and then you'll kind of decide which modes work best for your photo. Notice also that I have a really hard line here. This is, you can get rid of this. A couple of ways. I could just go ahead and take my erase tool and just start erasing the edge. Oops, you have to make sure you're in the right layer. So I got to go to my girl layer. And I can just start erasing. So right now you can see the opacity of the eraser up here is at 49%. So I could increase that and it erases it, but then you get this really hard line. So you might want to start with 100 and then lower it. Maybe make it a bigger brush, so using your bracket keys. That'll make it even softer. And making sure that my brush up here, the hardness of it, if I increase the hardness, you'll see it's got a really harsh edge. And we don't want that. So we want kind of a fuzzy edge brush. So I'm going to lower the hardness. Okay, and then I can kind of just erase, right? But when you erase, it gets rid of the pixels permanently. So I'm going to go into my history palette and I'm going to backtrack all of those erasers that I did. Another way to do it is by using the masking tool. So down at the bottom of the layer palette, right here, I'm drawing a circle around it, is a little box with a circle in it. If I push that, it creates a masking layer. So a mask equals hiding. So you're hiding behind a mask. So we can mask areas that we don't want to see. So to do that, you have to make sure you're in your mask layer. And then black paint, so I'm going to grab my paintbrush, and I've got black and white paint down here. Black conceals, so if I put that at 100, it's concealing at 100. Okay. And then if I switch it to white down here, I just flip it, white reveals, so I can bring back the pixels. So it's a little bit less destructive to use the mask tool versus the eraser tool. So black conceals, white reveals. Black paint, and I might erase that at 100, and then I might go in and just feather that in with a lower opacity eraser, kind of masking, just to soften the edges a little bit. Okay? And then when you're saving your file, you don't want to just save over the original, because you will save over your original photo and you might not get that original one back. So save as always, and make sure your name is always in your file name. And I'm going to do underscore composite 1, because you're going to do 3 of these. And then I can just flatten those layers as a JPEG. If I want to continue working on it, and I'm just saving it for the day, I'm going to come back to it tomorrow, you're going to want to save it as a PSD or a Photoshop document, because you'll want those layers to be editable. But if you're all done, you can save it as a JPEG. So and put it in your photography folder. Okay, so your photography folder, and then into the portrait unit. Okay, and then just hit save. You also could try different portraits with different images. So that little girl in that photo of this could blend very differently. So you're going to want to try different combinations.